So let's talk about genetics. You say, Misty, that you have a family history. You've got some family that, struggle with diabetes, cancer, and things like that. So
Both.
commonly, we get some people that will say, well, you know what, I just got bad genes. So it's kind of a cop out. So, but you have taken a different approach to that. Will you tell me about that?
Well, I do believe that some people are more predisposed to have more insulin resistance than others. And of course, people's metabolisms are different. There's people that have high metabolism, there's people not. Well, as far as like genetics goes, I was doing a little bit of research, and the only thing that really would affect somebody as far as their biochemistry that would legitimately make them just pack weight on is a lack of being able to see your leptin. And there is some injuries that have happened to people, like car accidents and brain tumors and stuff like that, where, the scar tissue breaks up that pathway and you don't see the leptin anymore. Well, you're constantly in save mode. So Robert Lustig actually has treated quite a few of those patients and saved them. And they just started packing on weight out of nowhere. And there was a drug that they found that basically steps in for the leptin, and lo and behold, they're losing the weight. They're doing just fine. But aside from that, genetically, if you are like me, that's more predisposed to, if I look at a donut, I'm going to gain 5 pounds. Just remove the problem. Don't eat it. And right. If you do every once in a while, okay. But people that are like, oh, it's just in my genetics. Well, okay. Well, you can also fix that.
Right. And that's what I say. We can't change our genes, but we can definitely change the way our genes are expressed.
Yes.
And,
exactly.
So when people say, well, I just, I have a cardiovascular history in my life. My dad died when he was 45. My mom died when she was 50. I'm kind of doomed. It's like, well, no, you're not. You can still change the way your genes are expressed, even though you have bad genetics.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Jason Fung gets into that a lot too when he talks about like intermittent fasting. And there's somebody else that I follow. His name's Thomas DeLauer. He's not a doctor or anything, but he goes through a lot of the studies, and that's pretty much all he does is he goes through all the studies that are coming out, and he'll gets on YouTube and he tells everybody about what's going on. But you can trick your metabolism. You can change your metabolism. I mean, case in point, look at people that do bikini competitions. They come out of that with, no metabolism, and they have to repair it and rebuild it. And so I don't really think it's healthy to do it that extreme all the time, right. But you can change the way your metabolism reacts.
Well, I think one thing to be said is, and we talk about it often now, is metabolic flexibility.
Yeah.
And when you look at in the history, our ancestors, they were metabolically flexible. So it wasn't that they couldn't eat fruit. Let's face it, fructose comes from fruit. It wasn't that they couldn't do that. They just didn't do it all the time.
Right.
And
when it was in season.
Right. They did it seasonally, and they would also do it when they probably didn't have other things. For instance, I know a lot of people don't like hearing this, but in most cultures, when you look at it, over generations and generations, the number one food source was meat. When you look at it for calories, the number one food source was meat. And they ate vegetables and they ate fruit a lot of times when they didn't have enough meat.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still meat that was mostly sustaining them. And, but also there'd be periods of fasting when they didn't have meat, when they were hunters and gatherers and they didn't have any food stored because it was in the winter, and they didn't have any meat yet because they hadn't, hunted or hadn't had a successful hunt. They would fast for a couple days until they had food.
Mm-hmm. And just the way that the biochemistry works within the body when you are fasting, it's fascinating. I mean, if we just, also some people argue about, oh, well, keto's unhealthy. Well, if it was unhealthy, our bodies wouldn't have the ability to do it. We wouldn't be able to run on fats.
That's a really good point, right? Yeah. Our bodies are incredibly flexible and incredibly resilient. The average person, I'm not saying this is healthy necessarily, but the average person can go without food for up to 30 days. That's a
Right.
long time. That tells you how much storage we have in our body, and our fat stores is a perfect way to save energy. The
Yeah.
problem is when we have an overabundance of food, like most of us do as Americans, we're going to store too much of it.
hmm And then also just the way that the fructose metabolizes anyway, it's like immediate fat into the liver.
Right. That's the problem, is that we're converting it into that instead of energy and burning it.
hmm
Yeah, and that's one of the things when I think about fructose, you think that it's fruit sugar is where fructose comes from. Well, were we not made to eat that? Were we not made to eat fruits? Well, we were, but like Janet said, we were going to burn it. Okay, I don't have anything else to eat, so I'm going to eat this banana, which is pretty high in fructose, and it's going to spike my glucose. But then I've got to go. I've got to go chase a deer to go
Right. Yeah.
to have dinner. I mean,
Right. You're not going to eat it and go
seriously.
sit in front of the TV and
No.
watch a movie or something.
No. And and I know you love cyclists, Misty. That's a lie.
My
That's a
favorite.
joke. But
Yes.
as a cyclist, I eat around my workouts, and I had a mountain bike race Sunday, and right before the race, I had a pure fructose gel. It was 100 calories of pure fructose, but I burnt 2,000 calories in an hour and a half,
Right.
an hour and
Exactly.
50
If you're
minutes.
burning it, you're not going to hurt yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And we just have to, we have to be careful with those things. If we're gonna burn it, then yeah, we can eat it.
Well, I do have a comment to say about this, though. I mean, we had an Airedale who loved to snoop through things, and he was super smart. And I had bought Shawn applesauce for his rides because I thought, well, this would give him a change, while he's riding. And the dog got into Shawn's bag of his bike gear, ate all the applesauce. I mean, every last drop of it, but did not touch the gels or the sugars or all
He
the other
wouldn't.
stuff. So
Right.
the first
Must
thing
be
I
gross.
said, no, this is what I said to him. I said, if an animal rejects, we probably shouldn't.
I was thinking about that. A dog was an omnivore and
Yeah.
and
There's
an
something
opportunist, and they wouldn't eat the gel that I was eating before my races.
Nope.
I mean,
That's
it just
funny.
tells he ate the real food, but he wouldn't eat the gels.
No.
It just tells you something about those foods. And one thing about this, as we're on the subject, is like one of the things we talk about when it comes to eating healthy. I know it's a lot simpler than it sounds, but some people get really confused. But here's one of the simplest things to remember: if it doesn't rot, don't eat it.
Right.
Yeah.
And think about high fructose corn syrup. It is so highly concentrated sugar that bacteria and mold cannot grow in it. It's too concentrated. It'll lyse their cells. So it's preserved in itself. It's a preservative in itself. High fructose corn syrup is a preservative in itself. It won't rot. Well, we probably shouldn't eat it.
That's why Twinkies will live forever. They'll outlast us.
right. Because there's so many preservatives. So,